Welcome to Scars to Stars, where conversations and personal stories let us know we are not alone. In this show, you will meet authors and speakers from our books and events as they share vulnerable personal stories to spread hope and inspire you through adversities in your own life. The world is a difficult place. You will find like-minded people here with kind hearts and supportive souls. I am your host, Dina Brown Mitchell. I am a suicide survivor and the founder of the Realize Foundation. I am so glad you are here. Let's dig into this meaningful conversation. Hi, everybody. It's Dina at the Realize Foundation, and I'm here with Rachel Powell. She has been on the podcast before, but she's writing in volume 5 of Scars to Stars. So we have some new things to talk about this time. And so thank you for being here, Rachel.
Hey, I'm happy to be back. I'm lucky. I get to come again and be part of the book, and it's been great.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to give you the floor and let you give us a little background about what you're doing now and what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, I am a widow coach. I'm a Christian widow coach. I've been on the podcast before to talk more about my story, but I'll give a flyover. I love the Lord with all of my heart, and I thought I was supposed to be a normal woman, wife, and mom, doing normal woman, wife, and mom things forever, but a major tragedy has completely changed the course of my life. But my life is not a tragedy, and neither is yours. That's the message that I want to bring of hope to people that I get to share with, and specifically the widows I get to encourage. So a little on my story. I met my late husband, Andre, in high school youth group. We both had a heart and had a vision to live intentionally in our life with purpose. And we had to grow up pretty quickly. We were married at 19. And when we were sophomores in college, we started raising my nieces and nephew as they came along. So my oldest girl, they're my nieces and nephew biologically, but those 3 of them are really my own kids. My oldest is now about 21 and still with me. So she was born when I was 18, and I started helping my parents raise her at that time. And then as the other 2 came along, we were involved together, my late husband and I. So we love those kids. Involved in the church. I went into nursing, have a bachelor's as a registered nurse, and Andre went on to get his PhD in civil engineering. He was incredibly intelligent, but he most of all loved the Lord, had an incredible personality, a man of character and integrity. He just loved the Lord and loved people. And he had such a powerful life that felt like it was ended too soon. We also added a biological daughter into the mix. And so in 2017, we had 4 children. One was an infant, and we were busy with life. He was finishing his PhD, going to start his dream business. He had a vision of bringing clean water on a global scale and the gospel. I was still working as a registered nurse, but less hours. I was homeschooling. I had a side business. I was leading worship in the church. Life was really full, but it was beautiful. And then over the course of 1 year, my entire world changed. So much went down the drain into a downward spiral. My amazing husband had things going on with his mental health. There was an addiction that surfaced and completely escalated out of control. And instead of being humble, and teachable, and accountable, and the person he had always been his whole life, he became very defensive. Very angry at me for boundaries, just somebody completely different. And over the course of 1 year, there was abuse in our marriage. I was crying out for help to the church. I was told I just needed to submit We really didn't get the help that we needed, weren't referred out, although I was trying to find counseling assistance. I got a counselor for myself, was involved in a group, asked my husband to do marriage counseling and the men's side of the program, and just couldn't turn things around. He was still very, very angry, and the addiction kept escalating, and we lost him by suicide in 2019. So our youngest had not yet turned 2. And there I was with 4 children. And as you know, in 2020, we went into the COVID pandemic, and life was so hard and so dark and so confusing. There was so much hurt and guilt and fear and shame. The load that I was carrying felt impossible. The pain felt unbearable. And within that first year and a half, I ended up attempting suicide twice myself, feeling like I just could not do it all anymore in the darkness and the pain that I was living in. And by the Lord's grace, He has been so faithful, and He met me, had an epiphany moment, and I really had to commit to participating in the process with Him. I'd been pouring out for my kids, trying to get them counseling resources, things, but I was very fearful about pouring into myself and my own healing, using my resources financially, the time, the effort. I had more reasons than ever before not to put my healing first, because all of my fears were, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy now more than ever, but it was when I needed it the most. And so I had to commit to going on this deep healing of journey healing with the Lord, this heart healing process. And the Lord met me there. The verse that He gave me that really became my battle cry was Psalm 118:17, and it says, "I will not die, but will live and proclaim what the Lord has done." And that is what I did. And I went on a process of finding all of the things that were truly helpful, not just grief places where people commiserate and repeat the same things, that their life is over and this will never be healed, and where people circle the drain in grief, but really being able to be honest, but holding on to hope and a way forward together. And that was with Christian widows. So other widow sisters who were walking this out in faith and finding evidence-based resources and things that actually helped me, to the point where that was 7 years ago, I lost my first husband. In my healing journey in the years that followed, and through the Lord's guidance, I became much more confident in my relationship with Him, in a 2-way experiential relationship with Him, with the Holy Spirit, with the confidence in who I was now without Andre, in my ability to lead my life and my family with the Lord, to using these tools to regulate my nervous system, to transform my own mind through coaching, through the grief recovery method. So many tools that were helpful to me personally, that led to opening Hope Speaker, starting my business to come alongside other Christian widows and to prevent suicides. And I remarried a couple years ago, and I'm blending a family, and I get to bring all the knowledge and experience and tools that I've been equipped with, and certifications and trainings and those things, to come alongside other Christian widows. I have a virtual Christian widow community. They're just my favorite people in the whole world, and to come alongside them one-to-one, as well as doing suicide prevention work. And that's part of why I'm involved in Scars to Stars book and writing and sharing my story honestly and in a raw way. Because even though it's been a difficult journey, there is healing when we bring things from the darkness into the light. And the Lord has been faithful to lead and guide and to make a connection with you and all of the people. And there was so much more goodness and life ahead than I could have imagined or believed, than I could feel or sense or see in any way at my darkest point. But it was still there.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And it's odd because the last few days I have a book called Jesus Calling. So I don't know if you have that book or know it. But the last week or so, I mean, this has kind of been going on for me for a little while, probably months, but just this past week, there's just so much content I've been reading from Jesus Calling and the Bible about struggling and how to get through hard times and his promises and why we go through that. Makes me emotional, sorry. But it's what makes us stronger.
It's what transforms us. It's hard to hold on to hope when you're at the bottom of the pit. But the crazy thing, I mean, Romans 5, it says suffering and persevering leads to character. I mean, it changes us, it transforms us, and it leads to hope. So we think that the suffering and the pain and the distress is hopeless, and somehow God says, no, suffering leads to hope. It's like this deep, gritty, rock solid foundation. And that was really, not only part of my journey to hope, but part of why I'm so passionate of working with Christian widows specifically, because I believe we can find hope and we can find healing and things in ways here, just in life, whatever you believe. However, when you get so close to death and darkness that you really look it in the face and you see how death in this broken experience of humanness that we have here, it will slowly siphon everything from us, from our relationships to our material things that we have, to our health itself. As death siphons relationships and stuff and even our own health from our life, until we all lose everything to death, then my interest became the Lord has something that he wants to give us. Jesus wants to give us something that death can never steal, and that it can never be lost. And the eternal things that last underneath that, the relationships and life and love that we have through faith that is eternal and kingdom bound. And so that's the kind of hope that I'm all about.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is wonderful. And I saw it firsthand recently because I lost my dad. Not to suicide, but just he was 81 and he had some health issues. But seeing my mom go through all of that gave me a lot more insight into your journey and what you help people with.
Yeah, losing your spouse, there's no comparing losses, like one is worse than another. However, when they look at that, like rated on stress or life index scales, the impact is more vast. They rank it number one because of all of the ways it just seeps out to every single area of your life. When you lose your person, when you lose your husband, there's not one area that it doesn't touch, because it affects your identity, your other relationships, your faith, your finances. You can become a solo parent. All the other relationships around you changed. I remember having health issues, 2 suicide attempts and 6 surgeries later, when I really realized, like, oh my goodness, this is affecting so much. I have to invest in my own healing. I didn't even have an emergency contact to put down. The dawning of those things, like your person in all of those ways is gone. And so, yeah, it's truly life-changing. And I feel that widows are uniquely equipped to know the Lord as husband in just a deeper and more intimate way than others, having had a spouse and experiencing the loss, and where the Lord meets us in that in experiential ways is profound. That gets to that gritty, lasting, eternal hope and transformation that we have because we've been forced to face it through their death.
Yeah. Would you talk a little bit about your community and what that looks like?
Yeah. So we meet every Saturday morning right now. We have live calls, and we laugh together, and we cry, and we pray, and we talk about all the things. We talk about faith and deepening our relationship with the Lord and hope. And we talk about the raw things and the losses and the desire to love again and widow's fire and all of the things. It's just a safe space to get to connect with others too. There's just something about being with other widows who get it. I'm sure other people have experienced this in their own losses and their own pains. You know, when you connect with someone else who has that same diagnosis or who has walked that same road, nobody gets it the same way that they do. And so to have a space where you don't have to explain the unexplainable, where they just know and you don't have to justify things, and where you can be so honest, again, that grief place to be real honest and raw, but also to be you're anchored in hope and holding on to this forward movement together. Doing it together is just a precious space. So that's the Hope Stronghold, my virtual Christian widow community. So we have a platform, discussion, weekly calls on Saturday mornings, and then some of those widows and some other widows that aren't involved in that community I walk with one-to-one alongside through coaching. And that's where I can bring, all of my training and coaching modalities, my background as 14 years as a registered nurse, still with an active license, the advanced certification as a grief recovery methods specialist, training in vagus nerve regulation, as well as my knowledge in the Emmanuel process, and connecting with the Lord in a two-way relationship and really going deeper with him and our faith in this journey. And to come alongside widows one-to-one, where we not only have, the Saturday morning calls in the community if they want to participate, but one-to-one sessions, and I'm available to them through the week outside of that so that they're not widowing alone. And to have someone that you can reach for in the hard moments and not just an hour out of the week. And to have personalized, like high-touch support that's tailored to you and what you need, and to be able to use any of those tools and methods to help those Christian widows to heal more deeply, to grieve with hope, and to rebuild in a redemptive way. And I'm privileged to get to do that.
Christina, if you like our podcast and you're enjoying learning about other people's stories of overcoming adversity, please go over to therealizefoundation.org and support us by donating. We believe that conversations, community, and personal story can change lives and reduce suicide ideation. And we also have a way, if you have a business, you can support us without money out of your pocket. So go on over to realizefoundation.org and look at the donate page, and you can learn how to support us as a business, and also you can donate any amount. Thank you so much. The thing that I relate the most to about communities is when we can see our story in someone else. I'm not even sure how to explain that, but it is huge, because and I'm just gonna say this real quick. It's a different subject, but it ties to this. After my suicide attempt, I spent 23 years hiding it. And the first time I met someone else who had lived through a suicide attempt, changed my world. I was like, oh my gosh, there is someone else in the world. And we know there are millions of people who've experienced this. But I didn't know that back then. And it wasn't, this was in the 90s when nobody talked about this. And so finding people that have been through similar things and having the chance to spend time together is huge and very
It's
healing.
so healing. Yeah. And the research in psychology and neuroscience and all of that proves that having an empathetic witness to truly see some of those deepest parts of you and to meet you there. People who get it changes your brain to be in those spaces with other people, and it brings healing in ways that you just cannot heal in isolation and do on your own. There's a lot of things we can do and walk ourselves through, and ways that we can find healing, and there's some ways that we can't without other people, and we need each other. We were made to need each other and to need the Lord. And so I'm a big advocate for both our faith and deep relationship with God, but also giving a gentle and validating space to our humanness and our humanity, because it's a part of who we are and we cannot detach from it in order to be spiritual. We won't be able to heal in the same ways.
That's very true. I have a question that might be harder, but after Andre's death, can you talk a little bit about how you approach that with your kids?
Mm-hmm. Yes. People have very different and very strong views about that. I'm so thankful for myself and my kids, the way that I went about it. I actually was able to hear later down the road from someone who has a lot of training in psychology for kids and with grief to validate what I did. So that was really like an affirming thing for me to hear, because you can be afraid that you're going to do something wrong or you're going to damage them, and how to go about such a sensitive subject with your kids. When Andre died by suicide, my youngest, like I said, was 1. I had 4 in total, and the oldest, I believe, was 13. And figuring out how to approach them in conversation was a big decision right when I was in the fog of grief and in the aftermath of tragedy. And I had internal family pressure. I had someone very, very close to me who, when I said I was going to talk with the kids about it and that it was a suicide, who was pretty strong in objecting to that the kids shouldn't know it was a suicide, or that I should just share that it was a death, but leave that part out. And I felt very disingenuine to me, like not authentic and not honest. And here's the thing. I knew that my kids would eventually find out. And I knew that, especially that topic and subject, Andre, and that he died by suicide, or how, like, that was going to start to come out and spread because of human curiosity. And I didn't want them to hear it from someone else. I wanted them to hear it from me. So what I did, and what I heard validating information for later, was sharing with my kids honestly in an age appropriate way. So I sat down with my older 2, who were a few years apart, and then later sat down with the younger ones, and would continue to do that, sit down and talk with them as time passed, about what had happened, and explaining it in a way that they could understand. And it was really hard, to see my older kids. They both immediately broke down and cried. The little ones obviously didn't understand as much. I put it in terms that a little child could understand, that Daddy and Uncle Daddy had died. And when they had asked why, still pretty early on, or how, I explained that he had done something to make his body not alive anymore. And, I still haven't gone into the details with them. Now, the two littlest are about to be 9 and 11. And we're getting into that time where I feel we're going to have some more discussions to those facts. But I've asked the Lord to lead me, and I've tried to seek to be at peace through prayer and in my own heart and mind of what is important for them to know, to not avoid it out of my own discomfort, and not to avoid it to try to protect them in a way that will ultimately be harmful, but to try to walk in step with them of honest answers that are age appropriate to the best of my ability, and just to keep open discussion and to keep having communications about that.
Yeah, I'm sure that was the hardest part.
Yeah, it was. I'll never forget. It's etched in my memory for both the older ones and the littler ones, and still the questions still the moments and the things that come up of them processing. It's heartbreaking. So when she was little bitty. I remember getting ready one morning and she's sitting on the bed in her pajamas with her hair. Her hair's getting curly and reading, quote unquote, reading through books. And just hearing her say, "Where is Daddy? Daddy's not here. Daddy has died. Everyone is sad," and like turning the page and reading it in her little voice so matter-of-factly, and my heart breaks and I just want to melt down inside, and yet I know it's healthy. It was healthy for her to process, in ways children need to process, and they were involved in play therapy and a lot of other things I could connect them to, but that is part of the hardest parts of grief, is seeing and walking your children through it as well.
Well, I'm impressed by your thought process and your actions at such a young age, and raising 3 kids that weren't yours. That's, I know they're yours, but I'm saying, at such a young age, having that responsibility. And
I don't think
this.
Yeah, I don't think I knew all of I learned more and more still as I go what all it meant. Jumping in, and it's interesting too, now that my kids are older. Like I said, the oldest is about to turn 21.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have these older ones, and then my stepdaughter in the mix too, right? So I have these ones that are like 18 and up. And some of the struggles that they have had with life choices that they've been making, or part of the journey that I couldn't see, that in some ways feel harder to me. We're all wired differently, but to me, I wanted to live my life so intentionally, and I loved them so much that even though looking at it now, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a big sacrifice growing up so quickly, helping at such a young age and taking over and taking the responsibility. But in my own way, that was easier for me to step in and to try to protect them from abuse and instability. And that was easier than where I'm at now of the letting go. It was like, oh, I can step in, I can protect you, I can give you what you need, I love you. And then where they want to jump the fence and run out of the sheepfold, and I'm like, oh no, don't do that. Because I have less control. So maybe that was my controlling it and getting to do and bring little ones in was still took faith, but for me was easier than the faith it takes to release and trust them to God. And so it's been different things all along the journey, but the faith journey is the same. And I tell that to widows that, widowhood and the journey of faith, and it's so hard. And so many, especially young widows that I connect with, desire love again, desire remarriage one day and blending a family. And I tell them, it's this faith journey and the struggle that you're in, it's going to be the same faith journey going forward too. remarriage and blending is not easy. It's going to take the same surrender and but it's a beautiful redemptive journey. Like it never goes back to the way it was. It's not easy anywhere along the way, but I want to participate with God's redemption story in my life and in the life of others. Like what are we going to do with this one beautiful life we have? And I think it was C.T. Studd that said, only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Mm-hmm. And I truly want, I want my life to have meaning that goes far beyond the number of my days here. And I believe that happens through loving God and loving people.
I agree with that. We have a couple minutes, and I want to ask you one last question, and that is, what do you do to take care of you on a daily or weekly basis?
Oh, that's still part of the journey. Yes, doing that. I have a habit, a discipline of always spending time with the Lord, and that is truly life-giving for me, to get in his word, to journal to him. And it's become a practice of journaling back and forth. So not only writing to him, but pausing it's my humble attempt to receive what he says back and to journal is truly life for me. I love music. So I, when I moved to a safer church in my widowhood and with my kids, I was able to lead worship again in some capacities, and that is still truly, I get filled so much to be involved in worship, and having time with my husband and my new husband, a date night, doing things with my kids that just bring us laughter and joy. Reading together at night, like those things fill me. Awesome. And how I get to connect and pour out to others, especially, like I said, connecting with my widow sisters, because they're just my favorite people. Whenever I get off of calls with them, even if we went through some really hard things as a one-to-one, like I'm so filled up. It's crazy that I would never wish this journey on anyone, and it's been the hardest thing I've ever done, and yet there's nothing else I'd rather be doing now, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's kind of why I'm on this journey with this podcast and these books. The similar path. So Rachel, tell everybody how they can find you and work with you.
Yeah, you can come on over to hopespeaker.com, and I'll connect with you there. If you are a Christian widow, you can go there, or to hopespeaker.com/coaching. And to be involved with our virtual widow community, if you want to start there, go to hopestronghold.com, and you can join our monthly or yearly membership. And I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. I will have all of that in the show notes for anyone listening, and you can reach out to Rachel. You can also find her on social media and follow her, and she puts out good content there too, because I get to see it. So thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be with you again. Second time. I'm doubly blessed. I'm doubly blessed. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you joined us for this conversation. My wish is that you found comfort and hope in your own unique situation. If you resonated with our message, please head over to therealizefoundation.org, where you can apply to write your own story in one of our books. You can also download our 60 Ideas for Self-Care on the resources page. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, you are not alone, you are worthy, and you are enough.